A reviewer of Tomb Raider Shadow of the Tomb Raider once said about the Survivor Trilogy games that they, quote, were a perfect blend of action-packed adventure, summer blockbuster, adrenaline-pumping, engaging gameplay, end quote. That is exactly what I dislike about them, and what I hope will not be dominant in Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis.
No thanks.
Judging from the recent release of demo gameplay footage and interviews with developers, it has been made clear that the new reimagining of Tomb Raider 1 would first and foremost be aimed at fans of the Survivor games, while being also inspired by Tomb Raider Anniversary rather than the original. This inspired me to take a look back at the first two Survivor games, not having yet played the third one, and point out what I disliked about them, what I hope will not be featured in Legacy, and to finish, what I would like the game to feature through inspiration from the original game it is actually supposed to celebrate. In a nutshell, I would say this first Survivor game has nothing to do with Lara Croft or Tomb Raider, except the title, the name of the character, the color of her shirt, and the random and optional tombs which you can skip almost entirely.
I wouldn't worry. We're not in the same class.
In my view, the project amounts to piggybacking on an extraordinarily successful and impactful video game series by using its name and the name of its heroine to build a superficial Tomb Raider identity, while in the same breath removing 90% of what made that series distinctive, memorable, loved, and culturally significant. Had this game been titled something completely different, let's say The Survivor, and featured the same heroine with another name, while keeping almost everything else the same, including story, dialogue, set pieces, mechanics, environments, weapons, enemies, side characters, and villains, no one would have thought that this was anything like Tomb Raider. Also, I would add that the original game did something that cannot be reproduced, rebooted, or reimagined. It basically invented so much of what became the norm in 3D adventure games, and is responsible in large part for what these kinds of games have become today. At the time, gaming was mostly in 2D. 3D games were rare, were rather clunky and simple. Tomb Raider and Mario 64 both exploded onto the scene in 1996, offering two very different paths to 3D adventure and action gaming. To Mario 64's free-roaming, gamer-friendly experience, Tomb Raider offered what I would call a methodical adventure platformer aimed at teenagers and young adults, based on popular imagery, Indiana Jones specifically, and some horror elements, and the strict and punishing gameplay of 1989's Prince of Persia, from which certain contents are also borrowed, like spikes, deadly metallic doors, fall damage. Consoles did not usually feature a stick option for controllers. Therefore, developers created the infamous tank controls, which many games at the time used, including fellow 1996 alumni Resident Evil. This kind of innovation cannot be reproduced or rebooted. To do so, the Survivor reboot would have had to step away from what was common at the time in gaming, which it did not. It did, in fact, the opposite, which is understandable, because that's a risk many high-budget games can't afford to take. Now, that is not to say that this game, Tomb Raider 2013, is bad, or that it can't be memorable or loved in its own right, and clearly it has been, because for many people this is Tomb Raider, And many players absolutely love this game and this Survivor series. And many of them would probably despise the classic Tomb Raider games, which would actually prove my point that they are completely different in every way that actually matters. From my perspective, Tomb Raider 2013 is an adequate or even good action-adventure shooter that requires very little skill and investment or patience to play and complete, whereas Tomb Raider 1 is, as I said, a methodical adventure platformer which requires patience, observation, a sense of exploration, curiosity, and the willingness to learn how to play the game. I've seen many new players try their hand at this old classic through the 2024 remastered version, which makes it much more palatable thanks to a modernized controls option, on-screen indicators for interactable objects in the environment, a save-as-you-go option, which removes the previous save point mechanic, and even features a game-breaking photo mode that allows the player to fly a drone camera throughout the whole level at any point. But even with all of this, many new players cannot endure what this game requires of them. It appears the team of Legacy of Atlantis will solve this issue by simply adding a difficulty setting, which to me is the wrong approach, but it is the commercially viable one, I assume. Can't have limited gaming journalists complain about a game being too difficult now, can we? All of this to say that I hope and wish Legacy of Atlantis would not find inspiration in Survivor's cheesy and forgettable blend of action-packed adventure, summer blockbuster, adrenaline-pumping gameplay, and rather see the original's methodical adventure platformer model as something to emulate in some new, original, and creative way that would entail some risk, however, in terms of gameplay development, which I'm afraid won't be on the menu. Certain aspects of both Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise of the Tomb Raider spring to mind as features I would absolutely not want to see in Legacy of Atlantis. Here we go. Waves of hordes of human enemies to shoot down. Simplistic gameplay and sluggishly boring traversal by way of constant wall hugging and shimmying. No sense of discovery or adventure. In the Survivor games, as in most modern games, the guide is built into the game through a system of hints and displays on screen, or through tedious banter. It's really funny how the game really makes you not have to think at all. Like, even when there's no danger, she just tells you by the way she behaves. Secret tomb nearby. Okay. Even that, you don't have to figure it out. There's nothing to figure out. We'll just show you everything. The dramatics. Whether it be the melodramatic story and music, or the cringe-inducing editing and blocking. Oh my god, every cliche in the book. The sloppy writing, lacking any sort of wit.
It's my daughter. Oh. 14 years old and smarter than you'll ever be.
Quick time events and interactive action-packed cinematics, which should just be ordinary cinematics the player can finally enjoy after a grueling level. Rant over. Now, since this new game is purported to be developed to, quote, celebrate the upcoming 30th anniversary of the franchise, it's this year, and as, quote, a love letter to the fans. Here's what I think the developers should find inspiration from in the original game they claim to be reimagining. Gameplay. Dynamic jumps, the depth, height, and velocity of which is determined by the starting position and order of buttons pressed, are fundamentals in this game. For instance, jumping from a standstill position makes Lara reach higher but not further, whereas jumping while running allows her to jump further but not as high. Also, contrary to Survivor or Anniversary Lara, the original Croft has powerful hops and flips that signal her innate athletic ability and make playing the game simply awesome. A crucial aspect of the original game was the feeling that one was invited to explore more or less freely the environment. That meant the player could try to jump here, grab there, etc. This design rewarded patience and curiosity with items, secrets, or just the pleasure of discovering accessible areas away from the main path, albeit for no practical reason. That also means the game constructed clear limits in the form of hills or visible walls that one could not cross. Later games introduced invisible walls, frustratingly preventing the player from reaching areas that appeared to be accessible. Are there still excuses to resort to this kind of trickery in 2026? Don't create paths that seem to be open to exploration. If they are not, don't put any pits Lara cannot fall into. Rather than the vague, automatic, and gradual health regeneration of the Survivor games that belies all fundamental biological principles and stretch the player's ability to suspend his or her disbelief beyond any reasonable limit, the new game should bring back a traditional health bar. It clearly indicates the level of risk one is taking in continuing the adventure. It forces a rational management of healing resources and gives the player the pleasure of having to look for these items. It also makes more sense than bionic regeneration. Fall damage should also be a core part of gameplay. As we've already seen from the trailers, Lara will activate large levers to modify the environment, open paths, and so on. This is a fantastic return to the classic mechanics of Tomb Raider. Other such mechanics many fans are sure to hope for are the finding of keys to progress in various areas, and of course, secrets that reward exploration. The Survivor games did indeed feature countless secret items and areas, but with the ever-present map at the tip of a finger, discovering them did not feel as rewarding as it did in the classic games, where some secrets were devilishly well hidden. Music. A respectful reimagining would make some room for certain musical themes from the past. Apart from the famous secret sting, it would be great to hear songs like The Chase, the main theme, and also my personal favorite, The Plot Thickens, with its air of mystery and nostalgia. Generally though, the worst mistake the developers of the new game could make in terms of music would be to fill every moment with it. The original game's greatness also came from its unique mood, which a subtle, minimalist, ambient soundtrack helped to create. Level design and content. Now, let's take a look at the levels from the original and pinpoint what I consider to be especially worth bringing back in each of them. Caves, but also many parts of the remaining Peru levels, put Lara deep into the underground belly of a mountain. By her own volition, she has made herself a prisoner of these creepy caverns. The feeling of being underground is incredibly memorable and should be replicated in the new game. City of Vilcabamba introduces a crucial aspect of the game. Many levels are not linear, and one can get lost, or at least spend a long time wandering about looking for where to go next. That is also true of Lost Valley. Lara starts in the caves yet again. She's free to go upstream or reach a wolf's cave down below, where nothing seems to be found. Many players go about these areas wondering what to do. Eventually, they discover the wolves held a secret. There is a way through that can only be reached by leaving the beaten path, by climbing in the rocks. The valley was lost and is now found. The powerful feeling of discovery can only be generated by withholding the path in the first place. Incidentally, a personal core memory associated with this level is the possibility of climbing some of the surrounding rocky walls of the Lost Valley. Some climbable platforms lead nowhere, but others allow us to reach higher, to a bridge or an optional secret on top of the temple. Fabulous! In Tomb of Qualopec, the final room with Qualopec and his guardians should definitely be developed further, and I have no doubt the new game will make that happen. But one other thing is worth remembering about this level. The hardest puzzle that many new players still today spend an hour trying to figure out. It is incredibly simplistic in design, but yet manages to time and time again baffle many experienced gamers. A symmetrical room with two movable pillars. No gimmicks. The brilliant design counts on the fact that players will simply not look to their right. Developers for the new game should think of other simple yet clever puzzles for this level. After Peru, a cutscene shows Lara reaching high into Jacqueline Natla's business offices. The new game is the perfect opportunity. Let us play this as a stealth level akin to Tomb Raider Chronicles' final chapter in New York. Donning an inconspicuous black catsuit, Lara can infiltrate Natla's building at night, working her way to the top by avoiding cameras, lasers, and guards. St. Francis Folly, one of the most beloved levels in the franchise, once again gives the player the freedom to choose the best path to take. 4 areas connected by one dizzying vertical shaft where Lara must accomplish precise jumps or fall to her death. This same design should be reused. The Colosseum, also not completely linear at first glance, features rooms interconnected by a sprawling space. The claustrophobic rooms of the previous level and its staggering verticality are replaced by the immense horizontality of the Colosseum. In the original game, this depth was indicated by a black void. Incredibly, the player couldn't even, at first glance, See the entire space. The new game should make use of modern technology to create the same feeling of incredible vastness. With San Francis Folly, I believe Palace Midas is the other quintessential Tomb Raider level. It is the least linear level in the game, linking various areas in a huge sprawling palace that has been decayed by centuries. It also counts on the fact that the player has the observation skills to understand what to do. Codes are shown, not explained. The necessity of using golden bars rather than lead bars is also simply shown, not told. The purpose of the hand is learned through experience or by accident, not explained. The worst way to go about this in the new game would be to have Lara give verbal explanations or to have her scanner give her hints. The cistern is once again not linear, a huge hub room to which other areas are connected. This apparent freedom forces exploration and observation. This water-heavy section is the perfect moment to introduce new enemies and perhaps a lighting system that goes on and off. Swimming in the dark would be a bit scary, wouldn't it? Its companion level, the similarly watery Tomb of Tehokan, should see the return to claustrophobic, cramped spaces, some completely flooded, that Lara must swim through to reach the ultimate cave where the tomb lies. To get there, an iconic and surprising water tunnel that some ancient mechanism turns into a strange turbo tunnel for fast travel. The next area, Egypt, should take direct inspiration from recent discoveries by Egyptologists.
New discovery is shedding light on a mystery that dates back millennia, many millennia. Italian and Scottish researchers, mainly from the University of Pisa, conducted advanced high-frequency radar mapping under Egypt's famous pyramids. They claim to have discovered wells, caverns, and shafts that are more than 2,000 feet underground. If accurate, it changes the face of history as we know it.
To reach the city of Khamun, Lara drives a motorbike. If the player should indeed be able to use it in the new game, it shouldn't turn the gameplay into absurdist arcade racing, as it disappointingly did in Tomb Raider Legend. The 3 Egypt levels feature as many different aesthetics. In the first one, City of Khamun, earthy browns and yellows echoing the desert underground where the city's remnants are found. In the second, Obelisk of Khamun, clean pastel turquoise marble with delicately placed ornaments like vases and chairs. The third one, Sanctuary of the Scion, is more dilapidated, not unlike the general Egyptian aesthetics of Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, evoking the menacing presence of unnatural forces. As St. Francis's Folly, the Obelisk of Khamun is constructed vertically. As the Colosseum, the Sanctuary of the Scion is a horizontal, sprawling area. The same feeling of amazing depth should be reproduced in the new game. Importing the following into the Egypt section from the unfinished business expansion levels would be brilliant. The night sky over the desert. The sacred cat statues, some of which silently turn to life to Lara's horror. Aesthetically, Natla's mines should initially remind the player of the Natla Enterprise building, but as its nightmarish doppelganger, the mine would have been taken over by high-tech equipment and personnel, most of which would be lying around the area, killed by as yet unseen creatures. The equipment would be broken. This level should be pure horror, dark, brooding, suspenseful. The opposite of the sunny open areas of the Lost Valley. Tomb Raider 3 drew inspiration from John Carpenter's horror classic The Thing. This would be the perfect time to get inspired again. The opening to the Great Pyramid would have been uncovered deep in the mines where unknown horrors dwell. For the Atlantis level, which is linear but once again brilliantly organized around a central vertical shaft of great height, the inspiration should be David Cronenberg's films The Brood, The Naked Lunch, The Fly, Existence. A fleshy, disturbing mix of living tissue and metal. Don't forget Bacon Lara. Why not make her a Mr. X type enemy that follows Lara menacingly throughout part of the level?
Now there's an idea worth paying for.
Once reaching the final area, traps should be merciless. The skills learned throughout the game should be tested continually. Natla should remain as the final villain, albeit in a harder and more surprising form. Think Gigantism. Think Dark Souls, Ornstein, and Executioner Smo. What about Natla Steen and her unaborted spawn of evil?
You can't bump off me and my brood so easy, Lara.
What can we expect from the actual reimagining of Tomb Raider? I can't say, but fingers crossed it will be more than a survivor game cosplaying as the OG. So far, the trailer's release are encouraging. Cheers!